Well, friends and fans, as I promised in my last airplane chat video, let us see how airspeed is measured. The speed of an aircraft, the speed of an airplane in flight. As you know, as I told you in my last video, it is not the same as speed indication in your car when you drive. It's a different ball game. It is a different story when it comes to aircraft. The airplane has a system called Pitot-Static System. That's basically the basis of airplane speed indication. Okay, so we will be talking about the system and see how it works. The system, once again, the system is called Pitot-Static System. So there's something called a pitot tube that is installed on the aircraft, and it is part of the pitot tube is part of the Pitot-Static System. The pitot tube, the pitot tube is installed somewhere on the aircraft where it is installed in a position that it directly faces the relative airflow, because what it does is measuring the air pressure, its velocity, to determine the speed of the aircraft flying in the air. I'm talking about the pitot tube. That's what it's called. And then actually what it does is it receives the relative air coming into its port, and then it measures the air pressure of the airflow going over the wings, and it measures the velocity of the air, and that way it will contribute in the measurement of the airspeed of the speed of the aircraft flying in the air. So the pitot tube has a port, okay, where the air comes in, and then one thing that we know, at least the the maintenance mechanics, one thing that they know that the pitot tube measures total pressure, not static pressure. It measures total pressure. That means it measures the static pressure, okay? The static pressure, I'm talking about the standard at sea level static pressure plus the standard at sea level dynamic pressure, and when you add those two pressures, I'm talking about the sea level at sea level standard on a standard day static pressure plus the standard dynamic pressure on a standard day. But if you do the addition of those two, you get the total pressure that goes into the port of the Pitot tube. And we know that the static the standard at sea level static pressure is 216 psf, pound per square foot. And then the standard dynamic pressure at sea level is 34 psf. So if you add, when you add those two, you get 2,150 psf. Okay, so that's 2,150 psf. That's the total pressure that goes into the Pitot tube, and then goes down, goes around, and goes straight into the Pitot tube diaphragm. There's a diaphragm that is flexible, and then when the total pressure just go right in the middle, right inside of the diaphragm. Okay, so the diaphragm in the static, in the Pitot tube instrument, okay, is a flexible piece that it can be deflected only by dynamic pressure. Okay, and in this case it's going to be, and then when that diaphragm deflects, it sends a signal to the airspeed indicator in the flight compartment, so the pilot can see the airspeed of the aircraft, and that dynamic pressure that deflects that diaphragm is not the it's not the it's not actually the total pressure. Okay, it's not the total pressure, it's a differential pressure. Okay, because remember, the total pressure is the static pressure, which is 2,116 psf. Okay, and then you have the plus the dynamic pressure, which is 34 psf. So if you take the total pressure, okay, and you subtract the sea level static pressure, which is 2,116 psf, then you get a pressure differential of the 34 psf, which is the dynamic differential pressure that actually pushes proportionally the diaphragm in the Pitot tube system instrument, and then the pilot in the flight compartment can see that signal sent by the differential dynamic pressure, and then that's the that signal is sent to the IAS, which is indicated airspeed, and that the speed that's the airspeed of the aircraft. That's you have to we need to remember that's the differential pressure that deflects the diaphragm in the Pitot tube in the Pitot tube area. So the static, you see, we have two ports, okay, in the static Pitot-Static system. You got the Pitot tube port, which is a total pressure port, and we have this static port, which is just static pressure port. Okay, the static pressure port does not receive any kind of velocity. Okay, the velocity is only received by the Pitot tube port, not the static port. Okay, so you have the flow of air for the static that goes into the static port doesn't enter the diaphragm in the static, in the static. Actually, the diaphragm it's located in the static the static port area, and the total temperature just go down and goes inside of it, while the static the flow, the airflow that goes into the static port, just goes around the diaphragm, but it doesn't, that airflow doesn't go inside the diaphragm, the diaphragm in the system. So the static pressure does not deflect the diaphragm in the system, okay, because it's not dynamic. Okay, it is potential. It's not dynamic. Okay, the only thing is, since it is, okay, it flows outside of the diaphragm, and you remember it is 2,116 psf, and then that's the standard standard sea level static pressure, which is, outside of the diaphragm, and then you have the dynamic, the total pressure, which goes inside the diaphragm, and now you subtract the static pressure outside the diaphragm from the total pressure inside the diaphragm, and you get the differential pressure, which is the dynamic pressure that deflects the diaphragm proportionally to send a signal, the airspeed signal, to the indicated airspeed, IS. The indicated airspeed, IS, in the flight compartment on the pilot's instrument panel, it is what it does. What it is the reading of the airspeed, okay, of the aircraft. You can see on the indicated airspeed indicator in the flight compartment, you can see the speed of the aircraft, okay. The speed of the aircraft from the signal received, produced by the signal received from the differential pressure, which is a dynamic differential pressure from the Pitot tube. Okay, but that the IS, the indicated airspeed indicator can sometimes can have some errors in it. So there could be, there can be some errors, but when errors occur in the IS, there should be, and I believe there should be and something called error card, an error card located near the instrument in order for the pilot to see what kind of errors uh, that are what kind of errors that are present on the IAS, which is indicated airspeed. Okay. There could also be position errors, and if position errors, they occur when if the static pressure port is has been placed in I would say not in the proper location, because the static pressure port should be placed on the aircraft at a position that where the airflow, where the local airflow equals the, well, let me put it another way. The static port, the static pressure port must be placed in a position on the aircraft, at a place on the aircraft where the local air velocity, exactly equals the aircraft velocity. If the static pressure port is placed at a position that where the local air velocity does not exactly equal the aircraft velocity, then the readings on the IAS will not be accurate. Those readings will not be accurate. But the only good thing is that those errors will also be included on the error charts, so the pilot can see that there are some issues with the static port system. Okay, so we know that the IAS, the airspeed indicator, gives you the reading, give the pilots the reading of the airspeed, the speed of the aircraft. You also have the calibrated airspeed. CAS, calibrated airspeed. That kind of speed indication is present after the pilot has made a correction on the IAS, but there is there's something that can happen, you know. Uh, aircraft that are flying at you know, very fast and at very high altitudes, the air that is entering the air that is entering the pitot tube is may cause some ram adverse effect on the diaphragm in the system. What I'm trying to say, the pitot tube in the system at high altitude and is subject, and then if the aircraft and if it is about a fast moving aircraft, a fast flying aircraft, that the pitot tube is subjected to ram effect that will cause the diaphragm to be deflected too far, okay, and then that will cause an indication of increased speed on the speed indicator. So that's the reason why we, you know, we have CAS calibrated airspeed. So when that happens, the pilots can make corrections to fix that issue. And as a rule of thumb, by the way, I would say above 10,000 feet, and I would say flying at 200 knots, the compressibility correction has to be made. That has to be made because of, you know, because the density ratio way up there becomes less and less as the airplane gains altitude. So above 10,000 feet, 200 knots, the correction, okay, the compressibility correction must be made, okay, in order to get accurate airspeed readings on the instrument. So that's why we have now calibrated airspeed, CAS. And there's another one that I know. I think the last one that I know about is the equivalent airspeed, and then this one is present after the pilot has made the corrections that I mentioned earlier. The correction in the airspeed, in the indicated airspeed IAS, and the second correction in the calibrated airspeed CAS. And then when you have those two, the equivalent airspeed now is ready to be is ready to be measured. Okay, is ready to be corrected. I would say after those two corrections have been after the two first corrections have been accomplished, and the 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 the, the role of the equivalent airspeed now is to do a third correction to determine true airspeed, to determine true airspeed, because like I mentioned, like I told you before, the density ratio of the air, you know, what you have at sea level is perfectly okay on the standard day. Remember, when I'm talking about standard, I'm talking about standardized conditions, you know, uh, developed by ICAO, you know, as guidance, you know, to be used by the aviation industry all over the world. So when I'm talking about the standard day, every time I talk about standard temperature, standard day, standard density, standard pressure, altitude, density, altitude. I'm talking. I'm with. I have in my head the. I'm thinking about standard atmosphere. Okay, developed by that organization, International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. So, like I said, the now a third correction must be made with the equivalent airspeed, because to determine true airspeed, because now like the density at sea level decreases with increases in altitude. So that's what I have with regards to how the airspeed, the speed of an aircraft, the speed of an airplane is measured in flight. So I hope you understood what I said about that, and stay safe, you know, and fly safely, and then I see you later.